ahead and call the special meeting to order for August 19, 2020. Roll call.
Richard Greeno.
Here.
Don Gilmore. David Hussey.
Present.
Isaac Chavez. Kevin Myers.
Here. Okay, did you? Hold on. Okay, we have a, next item is the minutes from the August 12th meeting. Everybody get a chance to look those over, see those?
Make a motion to pass them as is.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Richard Greeno.
Aye.
David Hussey.
Aye.
Kevin Myers.
Aye. Okay, new business. I have open a public hearing for docket number 2020-08, Good Oil Company request a variance of developmental standards for property located at 201 South Columbia Street, Frankfort. The need for the variance arises because this pre-existing sign does not have a setback of at least 15 feet from the road right of way. So, Don, can you present the Fab Report on that?
I can. As you just mentioned, this is for 201 South Columbia Street, Good Oil Company. The need is to arises because of, as you said, on-premise signs does not have a setback of at least 15 foot from the road right away. This sign has been erroneously permitted in the past, and so we're here now to try to get it straightened out. The variance may be approved under this section if, after a public hearing, the board makes findings of facts in writing. But the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. This sign has been permitted in the past. Nothing will change except for the sign face. From good to go, it will become Amico. Since the sign is already in place and has no cause, or has not caused any harm, it will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including this variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the surrounding area is also zoned general business, and the sign has existed at this location since 2006, so it should not be adversely affecting this location. And the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. This request is to make this sign legal in compliance with the ordinance as on-premise sign. The existing signage plays an integral part in the convenience store's existence. If the zoning ordinance is strictly applied, the sign will need to come down and will impose due financial hardship on the business. The sign coming down means that they will not be able to advertise their gas prices, temporary sales, or provide any adequate signage for their building. The recommendation is that the variance of developmental standards should be adopted subject to the findings of facts in this staff report.
Okay. Is anyone else wants to speak to this?
I would just say that Good Oil is happy to be part of your guys' community, and we have maintained the properties to the best of and to a high standard, and will continue to do so. And we appreciate your consideration in this matter.
I'd also like to, well, first of all, anyone else? Okay. I'd like to read into the record. We got an email, Dear City of Frankfort Board of Zoning Appeals. I cannot make the meeting on 8/19/2020 about the sign for Good Oil Company but I am being across the street, see no problem with docket 2020-09 08 to pass. I am in favor of making them making the changes they would like to make. Sincerely, Scott Scales, Allstate, 58 West Walnut Street, Frankfort. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yes, I have one. I think if we approve this, I think this and make it legal for this time, I think the sign needs to be readdressed from new owners. I think that needs to be in there.
That's a great point. I do make that suggestion at the Jackson Street signage. I didn't do it on this one. And I did forget to tell you that the state of Indiana, we've spoken with them. They're okay with the sign being where it is. So that's another reason why we should pass it. But, you know, if you want to recommend that, I don't have an issue with that.
Okay. Because we don't know what's gonna happen down in the future.
That's all right.
Okay. So, you have anything good? Okay, we'll close the public hearing then, and, we'll go to the checklist. There was giving of notice.
Yes, published in the Frankfurt Times, August 8th, 2020, and mailed to property owners within 100 feet, August 6th, 2020.
Okay, we have no conflict of interest. And we have a quorum. So, we would entertain a motion to approve or deny. And again, make sure the motion includes the finding of facts in the staff report. Or if you disagree, make your own. And if there's something else you wanted to add to that, that's fine too.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to make a motion. As is, except that I want to include finding of facts. And I want to add that this sign needs readdressed with new ownership, with ownership change.
Okay, so your motion is to approve the variance.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any other discussion on this? Okay, roll call.
Richard Greeno,
Aye.
David Hussey,
Aye.
Kevin Myers.
Aye. Okay, now we'll reopen. This is docket number 2020-09. Good Oil Company requests a variance of developmental standards for property located at 1401 South Jackson Street, Frankfurt. The need for the variance arises because this pre-existing sign exceeds the 100 square foot per face maximum and the 20 square foot per digital message board maximum. So, Don?
Yeah, this is 1401 South Jackson Street. The zoning for this property is local business. The signage has also been erroneously permitted in the past, so we're just trying to clean ourselves up here a little bit. An on-the-premise sign, in addition to the building mounted sign or sign, one single or double-faced freestanding sign may be erected on a business or industrial site, providing the following conditions are met. This is out of Ordinance 155-134. The sign shall not be larger in total surface area than 100 square foot per face. The businesses to which require the frequent display of special prices and events shall be permitted, and in addition to a logo sign, one permitted message sign which does not exceed 20 square feet per face, or additional message logos signs have been allowed by Division 1. Additional message signs shall be mounted on the same pole or structure as the logo or signs on the building, and there shall be no freestanding message signs or product advertised signs whatsoever other than as permitted above. Basically, you can't advertise somebody else's business or activities on your sign, message sign. So variance may be approved under this section if, after a public hearing, the board makes findings of facts in writing that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. This sign also has been permitted in the past. Nothing will change except the sign face. Good to go, will become Amico. Since the sign already is in place and has not caused any harm, it will not be injurious to the public safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. I do want to add to this that the sign is square footage is too big. The message board is too big. There's going to come a time where you got to make a decision or adjust the ordinances. But because this has already been permitted in the past, you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place here. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in this variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner The surrounding area will continue undisturbed. The existing businesses adjacent to the gas station will not be adversely affected because the signage here has also been at this location since 2006. The strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties for the use of the property. The request to make this sign legal will result in compliance with the ordinance as an on-premise sign. The existing signage will play an integral part in the convenience store existence. If the zoning ordinance is strictly applied, the sign will need to come down. It'll impose undue financial hardship on the business, and the sign coming down means that they'll not be able to advertise their gas prices, temporary sales, or providing any adequate signage in their building. In this case, I do have a recommendation. The variance of development standards should be adopted subject to the findings of the facts in the staff report with two conditions. The board shall grant this variance valid for Good Oil Company only. The sign would need to be readdressed for compliance with any ownership change. And two, as per ordinance 155-137, landscaping around freestanding signs. It says, taking into account all the above provisions of this subchapter, shrubbery and other landscaping shall be planted around all freestanding signs when possible, and that landscaping must be attractively maintained. Now, they do have 2 fire bushes on each end of this freestanding sign. I'm suggested that there should be more plantings added to the landscape that's already existing. Now, before coming down here this evening, I'm thinking, I'm not a horticulturist, I hope that's the right word. I don't know when's the right time to plant, when not the right time to plant. I don't know if this is the proper time to start looking at putting plants in here. We're in the spring of the year. But what I want to do is to say, hey, we're going to pass this, but we want to have more yearly plantings going on than just a couple of fire bushes on each end of the freestanding sign. Since this is a major entryway into the city, I'd like to see some perennials planted to enhance this existing landscaping that's already in place. As I said, I do recommend adoption of this variance of developmental standards with those 2 recommendations.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Is anyone wants to speak on this? Yes.
I could. Thanks, Kevin. Shan Sheridan, 62 North Main Street. I reiterate what Don said about the need to look at ordinance change, and I know this is not the body that would do that, but the digital sign and the square footage on the signs, I think we have come into a new age in the sense of that some of these signs have gotten the technology has gotten a lot greater, and the opportunity to be able to go a little bit bigger on these signs, I think, is almost a must for some of these businesses. This particular situation, Mr. Good has been a great partner in our community. They have done nothing but everything they said they would do. This is a gateway to our community. I would also recommend that you grant this variance because I think it's going to be an important, again, the gateway to our community, whether they do the plantings or not. I think having something that says, hey, welcome to Frankfort with, we've got a great, beautiful station here is important. And they have been excellent to work with. And I can't say enough about Don Good and Good Oil. They do great work. So appreciate that.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Anyone else? Any questions or comments from the board?
One about the planning, I would say, I think that is fantastic, but I would want to make sure that they don't plant anything underneath the sign that would completely block your vision view.
That's right.
Because there is a vision view there for people pulling out. So I would say there's many different ones that they can plant that would definitely not do that, but I'm in favor of that. And just for the record, I was hoping Don would say it, but this sign is actually, the complete sign is basically 25.56 over the thing. So, I mean, over their allowance are just 25.56. So,
Okay. Anyone else? Good, okay. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and begin the checklist. Giving of notice.
Was published in the Frankfurt Times, August 8, 2020, and mailed to applicable property owners within 100 feet, August 6, 2020.
Okay, I don't believe we have a conflict of interest. And a quorum, we have a quorum. So I would entertain a motion to approve or deny, and again, make sure the motion includes the finding of facts of the staff report, or make your own if you disagree with the staff report, and also any other requirements that you would be interested in making.
Make a motion to approve and include the finding of facts made by the staff report. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yes, the plantings underneath, if they plant them underneath, if they do not block the vision.
Not block the view, traffic going out into the road.
There's many plants that,
For sure.
And as a timing, I suppose we should put something in there.
there's all kinds of landscaping things
Yeah,
that they can do.
Okay. So, did you get the motion? Okay, so we have a motion to approve the variance with the findings of facts. Do we have a second?
Okay, my part of the motion, the change was agreed upon and put in, okay, I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We got any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Richard Greeno,
Aye,
David Hussey,
Aye.
Kevin Myers.
Aye. Okay. We reopen the public hearing. Docket 2020-10. Harris Ayers requests a variance of the developmental standards for property located at 1401 Walnut Avenue, Frankfurt. The need for the variance arises because this pre-existing sign exceeds the 100 square foot per face maximum, 35 foot maximum height, and the 20 square foot for digital message board maximum. So, Don?
Thank you. This is at 1401 Walnut Avenue. My recommendation is probably not going to be favorable here. And if you pass this, as Kevin will tell you, you'll have to create your findings of facts. As I'm just going to point blank throw this at you boys. And that is, tonight you're between a rock and a hard place. And we're going to explain that here in just a second. The request is part of a tract 1 lot number 201 Cloverleaf Park Addition Center Township, Clinton County, Indiana, commonly known as 1401 Walnut Avenue. This freestanding on-premise sign exceeds the total square footage allotment of 100 square foot per face allowed in the Crosstown Overlay District. It measures 152 square foot, including the digital message board. The digital message board also exceeds the requirement of 20 square foot allowed per message board. The proposed sign message board measures 32 square feet. The proposed 36.5 foot height of the sign exceeds the 35 foot maximum allowed. An on-premise sign, the addition of the building mounted sign or signs, one single double face freestanding sign may be erected on a business or industrial site, provided the following conditions are met. Such signs include any structures to which the sign is attached shall not exceed 35 feet in height from the grade level to the top of the sign and shall be set back not less than 15 feet from the road right of way and from adjacent property. The sign will not be larger in total surface area than 100 square foot per face, and businesses which require the frequent display of special prices in the events shall be permitted in addition to a logo sign, one permit message sign which does not exceed 20 square foot per face. Where additional message logo signs have been allowed by Division 1, additional message signs shall be mounted on the same pole or structure as the logo or signs are on the building, and there shall be no freestanding message signs or product advertising signs whatsoever other than as permitted above. The variance may be approved under this section if the public hearing and board makes findings of facts in writing that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. This on-premise freestanding sign is 36.5 feet tall, 1.5 feet in excess and ordinance allowed. And the message board is 32 square foot, 12 square foot in excess of ordinance. The city ordinance was created to keep community interests attractive and safe from distraction. Granting this variance of developmental standards sends a message to the community that any size board is acceptable in our city. If the board believes that the ordinance is to be too restrictive, then I suggest the ordinance to be changed. The speed limit signs are changes to 30 miles per hour immediately west of the property. I believe a message board of this size would cause a serious distraction, especially in the change of speed limits in those close proximities. For these reasons, I believe granting this variance would be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of our community. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. This area is zoned open industrial. I believe that granting this variance would be inviting other businesses in the area to do the same. This could adversely affect the location in a substantially adverse manner. The strict applications in terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. By making this sign shorter, 1.5 foot, smaller would bring into compliance with the ordinance, and by minimizing the digital board by 12 square foot would not hinder the use of the property. And before I go on with my recommendation of denying, I'm going to sit here and tell you, you just got through passing a message board that is exactly what this gentleman wants to put on. I'm denying it or asking you to deny it because it's what the ordinance says. What I'm saying is that if we continue to pass these things, and I'm not going to tell you you should or shouldn't, that's up to you, you guys are going to make the decision, then let's recommend that we change the ordinances so that we don't have to come here and deal with something because of maybe what Mr. Sheridan had said is an advancement of sign or a time of where we are. Because it's in the ordinance, I'm going to say deny this thing. Now, I'm saying that and saying that if you decide to pass it, Kevin's going to tell you you got to create your own findings of facts on the reasons on why you want to accept it. You can't accept it by what I say because I'm asking you to deny this. But we just passed everything that we just talked about right here. And I purposely am doing this to make this board look at itself and make decisions and at least guide us in a direction on where you want us to go. Because for me, you can't continue to have everybody in town come into here and say, I want a bigger message board than 20 square foot. You can't go down 28 and not find a message board that is too long. That fits this thing. There's 2 places you can go, 3Ds and the First Christian Church. That's it on 28. So, you know, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm just telling you that I'm forcing your hands. You're going to make some type of a decision tonight, and then whatever decision you do, you're going to guide us if you decide to pass this, and in recommendation of whether we want to change the ordinances or what you want to do. So I may have talked a little bit out of turn here, but I think that it's something that we really got to start facing ourselves. If changing the ordinance is the right thing, then let's change the ordinance. I'm okay with whichever way you want to go.
Okay, thanks, Don, I think. Okay, is the petitioner here to speak on this?
Yeah. Terry Sayers.
You want to go? You know what?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Terrace Ayers, 1401 Frankfurt. You know, I appreciate what Don has to say on the matter because that is what the ordinance is. As being a sign manufacturer, you know, we're wanting to make a better entryway to the city of Frankfurt, have a nicer gateway coming in, have a sign that we can be proud of and show off there. It's one of the things that we see in all the different communities we work in is the restrictive sign ordinances are starting to have to be changed because it does limit the business. And I think, I don't know who, you know, when the ordinance was written on the 20 square feet, but the higher that sign is in the air, the smaller that is. And we did some drawings with a smaller LED sign up there, but it actually looks worse coming in with that smaller signage up there. So that's one of the reasons we stayed with that larger one. We also deleted the logos off that panel, so it's just text work on those panels up there to give a cleaner look coming in too. So, you know, we appreciate the consideration on it. Be glad if you choose to rewrite the ordinances to help be a part of that with our experience. So, yeah.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Any questions?
So this does not apply to the current sign, correct? This is a new sign.
Yeah.
How tall is your current sign?
I think it's right around 32 foot. So it'll be just a little bit taller than the current sign that's there. And then I guess I was under the understanding that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it 100 square feet per panel per business?
Per side.
Per side.
On each
Per-
side of your
just
front
side.
one, you got 100 square foot you can fill.
Okay. And I think we were 120 square feet per side.
Yeah.
So,
So it really comes down when you look at your sign that you've got some spaces in there that maybe could have been created together, put together more. May not have made your sign as attractive, but it is a very pretty sign, very nice looking sign.
and then
There
another
might
reason.
have been ways to make it.
Yeah, squeeze it down just a little more. And then another reason for the height was because it's going to flag out over our parking lot, we need to be able to have 14 feet of clearance for semis to come in and unload. So that's why we couldn't just drop it and fix the situation. So that was my reason. But,
Okay.
And is the placement more towards, is it like basically where the sign is now, or is it more towards the corner there to the east?
10 feet east of the sign currently. That might be actually 15 now that I'm thinking about it. Because the engineering originally for the foundation was a little bit smaller. We're going to keep it closer to the old sign, but now it's a larger footprint going in the ground here. So, and it is all, you know, we have it all engineered, so we don't have to worry about it ending up in 28. So, yeah.
So how many feet in from the road will it be?
Currently, I think, did I have that on the drawing?
Yeah. He meets the setback, and the state of Indiana has okayed the location of the sign.
Okay,
And it'll actually get, whenever they do the 28 project, it'll actually be further, so. Okay, all the questions for me right now?
I believe so.
Thank you.
I'll say, okay, anyone else? Dan?
Yeah, I'll address again, I appreciate what Don had to say, because it is a tough, I've said in your chair before, we have actually denied Frankfurt High School back in the day because of where they located it. But I would say this, I'm gonna have a counterpoint to Don on the 30 mile an hour because actually, I think as the traffic slows, it'll be a better opportunity to see the sign versus coming around. And I actually think that it could be an opportunity to maybe slow the traffic down because I don't know if you've been around there. I'm sure your son could probably tell you. They catch a lot of folks around there about that time because they're coming in, zooming in at 50, 55, 60, and then they'll slow down until they really try to get past Del Rios. And then that's when things, so maybe this is an opportunity. I think it would be a deterrent for speeding if there's an opportunity for a sign that's gonna have a message up there. Terrace does great work. They have put a lot of money in this building. They've had economic development impact on that side I don't have to speak for what you've seen, what they've done to the building. It's beautiful. It's an attraction. This is another gateway piece into our community. And I think that we really need to look at that. And Don is right. Don is at spot on. It doesn't meet the ordinance, but you've got a sign out there from, the church on the east side by Walmart. That's a much well over the 32. This is 32. And I would say, I think that the ordinance needs to be looked at somewhere around 32. That seems to be the sweet spot, because I think it's an 4 by 8 blocks, the way it works out. It's 4 by 8 sign.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be almost every time that we deal with sign, when we deal with a business, and I'm looking at these signs, almost every time it's been about a 32-foot sign. So that seems to be the standard now, and I'm just saying that maybe that ordinance needs to be looked at, because they're going to continue to come for variances on these. And 20, if you look at First Christian sign, it's not very, I mean, you see the logo, but you don't, unless it's at night, it's not, to me, very noticeable. So anyway, and that's a 20, along with Schultz's. Is Schultz's, or no, that's
Schultz's is bigger.
yeah, Schultz's is bigger. Schultz's went bigger.
3D is.
3Ds. And I will tell you, I try to read 3Ds as special as I go to church every Sunday, and I can never read it, because I literally have to go in the parking lot and stop and then read it. So I don't catch it as I go. So it to me, it almost defeats the purpose. If somebody's going to spend $10,000 on a 20-foot sign, that it defeats the purpose if you can't read it. So just my thought.
Good point, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Board have any questions?
Shan, I do agree with you, and I also agree with Don. The only thing that I do believe that the sign ordinance does need to be changed. There's no doubt in my mind that it does. But looking at this here tonight, my wonder is this: if we go ahead and pass this, the other two was already in place. It'd been a real hardship to make him tear something down and come into spec. But this here, not being up yet, and if we grant the variance, then it doesn't get passed. 20-foot does not get changed. What do we do then? Because we're still in the same boat that we are right tonight. And that's just a thought process.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, but my thought is this: then it's you had other signs that were brand new too, that had far exceeded 20 foot in our community.
I sort of wonder how signs got here.
Yeah.
Because they sure didn't meet they didn't meet the specs of our ordinance.
Well, you had one that was put up that I'm not too sure that ever got approved, and that blew down in the storm, and that was at the Franklin Plaza.
But I don't understand, because the school was denied, which as you mentioned, and then all of a sudden they popped back up in the same place, a bigger sign.
Yeah, well, they changed the location.
They did change the location.
They did change the location, which, if you remember that night, we recommended that we would probably accept it or give them a variance if they would change it to where they moved it, because it makes a lot of sense of having a digital sign at a light versus coming across, just driving past. And that's the only thing about this, with exception, the speed limit does decrease, and I think it's an opportunity to even make it to improve that. But.
Well, if you want to put a stoplight there, that's fine.
Yeah.
I know that some of the signs that were discussed on the school thing was that it was pointed out Schultz's was for one. That sign was actually erected prior to the ordinance.
Yep, that's true.
And there was a couple other ones that were too, because that was what they were using as an
Schultz's
example.
was the first sign, and that was the reason the ordinance.
That was the reason for the ordinance.
Right.
Okay.
That was the reason.
You're right, that's right, you're correct.
Okay, so do we have any other questions from the board on?
I would just say, as far as the ordinance is concerned, what would be the process to change that? Does the
council?
Yeah, the council, I understand that, but as far as, do we make that recommendation, or can we make the recommendation, or is it made by your office?
We would make it in recommendation of your saying hey, we see that there's a challenge with the ordinance. And so when we would present it, we would present it as suggested by the BZA. And what we would do is, we would try to figure out the proper, what should be in there. We bring it back to you to okay what we have before we present it to the council.
The Plan Commission.
So that's burden. The Plan Commission has to okay it also. So
I think the plan commission has to recommend it via
they
resolution.
recommend it.
Yes.
Via resolution
It has
to
to
the
be
council.
recommended by them first.
So we'll carry the torch for all that. That's not a problem. I just need a direction or a guidance from you guys to say, let's look at the changing process. We'll do what we can do.
What kind of timeline would we be looking at?
That'll take a while.
Yeah.
It'll take a while
You
because
could be anywhere from 8 months to over a year.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Just the time to walk it through, to get it written, get it into the different committees, and then get it on to the council. I think you're taking, if
Has to
you
be
got
3
it 6
votes.
months, it'd be very quick.
If I may, because you'll probably have to go to the historic, because if there is a sign that gets erected in the historic district, that group will probably need to have a say so.
Yeah, there's a lot of hoops that's gonna have to be.
There's a little less red tape around here.
There's a lot of layers, David, but if I may, just to finish, I'm sorry, Don, just finish this real quick at this point, in that, just remember that the digital technology, and I think Terrace would agree, because he does this all the time, has changed greatly over the last, even since Schultz's sign has been put up. And so what I would be more focused on, instead of necessarily the size of the sign, is the digital. You can tell them you can't have certain colors, or maybe there's certain things because you don't want to cause strobes effects or things like that.
Well,
those are all things that could be put in an ordinance that could protect on the digital, but the digital sign, it's very difficult to read unless those letters are big enough.
Right.
And because you don't want them flying by. You want them to be able to have, the Frankfurt High School sign turned out to be great. I'll sit there at that light and look at their messages. I think it turned out wonderful.
Well, our sign ordinance right now they can't have flashing or a strobe or what have you on the sign. Sometimes they do, and they're not caught doing it, but they're not supposed to.
Well, you're looking at the brightness of the sign, you're looking at what can be displayed on the sign. I mean, what you don't want to have on a message board is something that would be distractive.
Right.
I don't know what that definition is, but I mean, those are all things that have to be.
That's it.
David, in your question though, that in the new ordinances that we're looking at adopting, they go a lot faster to change than what these ordinances that we have right now. And that's another reason to start thinking about whether or not we need to adopt the unified zoning codes, because of the ability to change them quicker than what we're doing right now. That can be done in about a 2-week period of time in the new one, but you can in this one because of all the advertising and all the things you got to go through to make the changes.
That's that, yeah.
But that should not be the reason why we don't look to change.
Right.
We should.
Right.
We'll carry the torch and make things happen. And then if we ever adopt the new zoning, we can make those changes in the new ones also.
Right.
And then one other thing, Kevin, I would just say that these gateway signs, I think if you work with the owners and the businesses, could be great collaborators with the city to say, welcome to Frankfurt, home of the, I mean, there could be some great messages that are community oriented as they come in versus just advertising their business all the time. And I'm sure Terrace is a community player. He would be certainly willing to do something like that. So.
Well, one of the programs we've tried to work with, like some of the digital signs we've done already in the community, is get them to where, if we've got an Amber Alert or whatever, some sort of public emergency, getting these signs to work together, so that information can be broadcast right away too. So that's been a little bit harder to do than I thought it would be.
That's other groups you got to go through too.
Okay.
Kevin, I have one more, that if you do change the findings of facts and you do adopt this, I would put a recommendation that landscaping be in consideration if it's at all possible out there for the sign. You can
Yeah,
visit it.
it has to be.
It would be after the 28 project would be ready.
Okay. Anything else? Everybody an opportunity here. Okay, we'll close the public hearing and begin the checklist. Giving of notice.
Published in the Frankfurt Times, August 8th, 2020, and mailed to applicable property owners within 100 feet, August 7th, 2020.
Okay, there is no conflict of interest. And we have a quorum. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny. Make sure that the motion includes the findings of facts in the staff report if you agree with this, or make your own if you disagree with the staff report.
So like, just for discussion's sake, since this is, you just say, you would say like, if you wanted to approve it, you would just have to list why, right? It's not like technical.
We would go through, you know,
Findings of fact.
the findings of facts again, and then we could note the reasons why we're wanting to approve this or deny this. And,
I've never done that before.
If you look at the second page of your staff report, where it says request analysis, if you go down 1, 2, 3, that's what you'd read. So Don made his
Right.
opinion there, so you would
Right,
just
so I would
state it,
just state my own opinion.
you'd have to read the finding and then your opinion, yes.
You would first have to not accept my findings of facts. That's the first thing you'd have to do. So you'd make a motion not to accept my findings of facts or deny or not to. My recommendation is deny this project. If you want to accept this project, then you gotta get me out of the picture and then create your own reason to accept.
Well, that could all be done in the same motion, Don.
It can be, but I'm just saying that that's what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Let me help you, if you don't mind on that. Okay, so the approval will now be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. You could potentially say that there are other signs in the same area or in the same location of where this sign is going to be that have a larger message board, or that there are signs that are taller and to deny this, or you may even be able to stretch out even further and say we just got through passing signage that was against the ordinance itself. That's what you're looking at as far as that it not being injurious to the public safety or moral. That passing it is not going to make any change really to the business, or that it's in good shape. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including this variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. There's other signs in the community. It's also a general business area. Or it's an industrial area. So industrial permits make almost everything acceptable. And so that it wouldn't be adversely affecting the location of where the sign's going in. And that the zoning ordinance will result in the practical difficulties of the property. That what I'm saying is, what I said was that because it was too tall or too wide or whatever, that it doesn't, that won't affect the property itself, is a reason for it to to be passed, it's not, by making it larger, it's not gonna adversely affect the business itself, so. Those are suggestions, you can put them in the words that you wanna put them in, and then, if you have your own train of thought, knock it out. I just didn't want you to maybe sit here for a long period of time trying to work it out. You can at least throw out some suggestions and then work your findings.
Okay, thank you, Don. So we're still, we go through with the motion, and then included in the motion will be what we discussed, the findings of facts. If we choose to approve this, and or if you choose to deny, then you include the findings of facts as written. So. Or you could just say, if you want to approve it, and then you just look at Don and say, is what he just said.
There you go.
I would say then that I would make a motion to approve disregarding the finding of fact from the staff. And under the approval that will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, we believe that because there are other signage in the area, similar or over the existing variance, that it would not be injurious to public health, safety, or morals. Is that sufficient for that one? You say? Then under number 2, use and value of the area adjacent to the property because of the, et cetera. Because of the nature of the properties next to them, most of them are commercial as well, other businesses, et cetera. I don't think that having a nice sign out there would adversely affect those businesses or the property that they sit on. And number 3, the strict application of terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. I think that again, because of the nature of the sign and the areas and the properties around, and the fact that we do approve this, a larger sign than the ordinance states for other businesses, I think it would be acceptable in this case as well. Is that sufficient?
Richard, you want to add anything?
Pretty much so, but the only thing that I didn't hear, or I don't think I heard, was, are we denying because
The
Don.
motion is to approve.
Okay, motion to approve.
Motion to approve disregarding the finding of facts from the staff and including the finding of fact that I just stated.
Okay. Is she got that where she can reread this to us?
Oh, yeah.
I would not have that by now.
You had the recording, but did you?
Yeah, well, I have it recorded, I don't have it verbatim here. But, if I may, you didn't include the recommendation of the planting, of the landscaping.
Oh, so what would I just to include, the sign will include as able plantings and landscape around the sign,
But not to block.
but not the block vision of traffic, planted in a way that is not injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community.
I think that you pretty much covered it. I think one thing that struck me was that when you spoke about the height of the sign because of trucks coming in and things like that. I think that's a good point too. Yeah.
Okay. But now, part of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Don, but I think in your motion that we need to say that we need to go back to the drawing board and change our ordinance.
I think we can make a separate motion for that after we do this.
Well, okay, I think it should be in continuous with this motion here. This is what it's about.
Richard, I don't think that it's making the changes as part of accepting his sign. I think that Kevin's right, that afterwards, we're gonna talk about something here that, that is in kind of the same boat here after we get through with the sign. And I think that they're making a separate motion that you're suggesting that we take a change of ordinances to adjust in the signage. We can take care of that, but
Okay,
that'd be a separate recommendation.
okay,
Okay, David has made a motion.
second.
We have a second. Do we have anything else you want to say? Okay. Roll call.
Richard Greeno,
Aye.
David Hussey.
Aye.
Kevin Myers.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
congratulations, sir. Okay, other business that we do have, and was fresh in our mind, let's go ahead and,
Let's do that.
we as a board can make a motion to recommend
To Dawn.
to Don that he goes to the council to,
Well, yeah,
and the planning commission to.
I say we'll probably have to come back to here and the plan commission.
Yeah,
and then-
we'll bring it back to you guys, to this board, to say, here are the changes that we're looking at. And then if you feel we address the issue properly, then we'll take them on then to the planning commission and everywhere else that it needs to go.
Okay.
Do we need to make that into a form of a motion or just leave it as part of the minutes?
I think I'd make it into a form of a motion,
Okay,
just so that I have
guidance,
guidance from the,
okay.
Okay, you make that motion?
I'll make that motion as stated.
Okay, so just for clarification, your motion is for Dawn to look at changing the ordinance and how that would take place, and then bring it back to
On
the board.
digital signs,
on the digital signs.
on the sign ordinance on digital signs.
Okay, and then bring it back to the board for review before pursuing other.
And then go through like the steps we need to take.
Okay, you make that motion? Second that? David?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The motion and second. Roll call.
Richard Greeno,
Aye.
David Hussey.
Aye.
Kevin Myers.
Aye. Okay, Don,
And I thank
we're
you.
on that
I
sidewalk.
thank you for that. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. You know, I was hired for this position in March. And I'd say since April, I've been trying to address the sidewalk out on the corner of Williams Road and Walnut Street. It actually came before this Board of Zoning Appeals. And giving permission for Mr. Fawcett to put his Pizza King in there, and there were recommendations that were engaged in the agreement. And one was sidewalks and curbings to be constructed along Williams Road, landscaping fencing to be constructed along the south property line, and that signs not illuminated with a maximum of 32 square foot installed as close to the house as possible. Well, the sidewalks, and it's not actually curbing, that was placed there, they're all illegal. And they're not ADA compliant. And as I said, I've been trying to work out all kinds of deals and actions and what we can do to try to change this and get it into compliance. And every time I come up with a proposal in the process, I get it shot down. And I'm now caught between a rock and a hard place. I've had several conversations with Mr. Fawcett on this issue. And there's a lot to the sidewalk. I mean, there's a lot of fingers to be pointed, and the fingers can be pointed right back into our office as easy as it can be towards Mr. Fawcett itself. And I guess I'm coming to you to say, give me directions on what I should do with the sidewalk situation there on the property. I'm telling you, without explaining everything that I've done, we thought we've come up with some good ideas, but my issue that I have now is that anything that gets done has to get paid for by the end of the year. And because of the budget, I can't bring money in from this year to next year's budget. So it becomes a big challenge to now try to strike some type of a proposal. Now I've got Jason Forsythe, the city street superintendent, who will come in and pull all those out. The first part of it is illegal because it's not ADA compliant. He put all of his rebar to the outside for stakes, so they're all visible. Somebody can get hurt or tires could be punched. As he progressed down the line, we told him not to do the rest of the sidewalk. We were working out a proposal for him, and then he puts in the rest of the sidewalk. It's not to any type of a level. He just took a 2x4 and just stretched across it. It's all bumpy. It just doesn't meet ADA regulations, and the city is in and could be in a potential challenge if something goes on out there. It's not thick enough as you get towards the end. In some areas towards the end, it's only about 2 inches thick, and it's all illegal. I tried to go through the city attorney with suggestions and ideas, all got shot down. So as we do in our office now, when we get these type of issues, we have a team meeting to discuss these things. And Ms. Ashley made a great point to bring it back to you guys to see if there's any suggestions or guidance or directions that you want to give me to try to get these things into compliance. Now, I realize that it may not be your job to do that. It's my job to enforce the ordinances. But when you look at things that went on, the sidewalk, the first part of the sidewalk was put in, it's not put in properly, but it was recommended by our office to be put in that way. And the second part of the sidewalk, we told him not to put in, but he put in anyway. And so I'm lost for direction or guidance because, and this is the softness of my heart and side of things, because we kind of have a dog in the fight in the first section of it. I feel like we should have a dog in the fight of it on all of it, or at least that part of it. But once again, man, I don't have the funding required to take care of it all, and nor should I, because all that does is now take somebody who may be even in a worse condition than what this is and say, hey, you gave John Fawcett new sidewalks, how about giving me new sidewalks? And I don't want to be put in that situation because I'm just not. I won't be put in that situation. So I've come to you. Sometimes more heads are better than just one or two to see what you guys would suggest the potential doing. He has not done landscaping or fencing that was required to be done on the south side of the property line. So I'm guessing that he's in violation of that as has been recommended to him to do.
Don, on that, and I'm not sure if that was actually discussed in a later meeting, but property owners on the south side and on the east of that both requested that he not put fencing up. So, I think he was going to, but they both requested that they would rather not have the fencing.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Why is that?
So, yeah, that,
they just
They just didn't want
didn't want it. So,
but I really think since the BZA made these recommendations to start with, it's up to us to make sure they was followed out. And I think we can recommend to Don to follow. My question is this, can this qualify under the 50-50 for him or not?
Well, it's funny that you asked that because that was the proposal that we were working at before he put the second section in.
Mm-hmm.
And once you put the second section in, then it now raised the price of getting the product because we got to get it out. Well, that was before talking to Jason to get it out. But my challenge with that, Richard, is I'm now within, this is August, September, October, November, 4 months of being at the end. I wish I would have brought the paperwork down that I had, but he'd be required to pay a pretty good, and maybe that shouldn't even be a factor here, he'd be required to pay a very large amount of money per month to get it done by the month of December. Or it can be attached to the lien on the property and he can pay the lien off in that manner. That's been discussed in our office. And the reason why he put the second section in is because we kind of talked about that, hey, if we can't come to an agreement, then we can always put the sidewalk in and attach the lien. And for some reason, he didn't hear me say, don't do anything until I get back with you because I'm going to work out a deal. And part of that deal was 50-50. I have money in the 50-50 to do this project and him pay it back, but I don't know if he can pay it back or should that be a consideration because he can't get it paid back because of the sidewalks are illegal. Now, I'm telling you, I've been in conversations, I've been working on this for a long period of time. I thought we had it worked out and then it all got blown up, so that's been under consideration, Richard.
Okay, so, Jason will bite the bullet and take it out.
Yes, Jason will take it out for us.
Okay,
All
so
we gotta do is just, we
get it
just
back
gotta
in.
get it, formed up, thank you, Ashley,
Okay,
and put back.
so if Jason will take it out and there's any money left to do 50-50 with him, I do it or attach a lien. And I think that's a recommendation we maybe should make to you.
He does still own the property, correct?
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
And is there anything in there now?
No,
Any?
no. And so in the second half where he did, they made him put in, I call it an apron, an approach because they made the parking lot bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't need that now. And so we're gonna put the sidewalk in as a sidewalk that goes back to where the original approach was. So we'll bring it down to that level once we get back to there. But we just wanna, I'm just concerned about when we get into winter months, the big section on the front side, and you get some snow, even though it's got cone, somebody go banging into that because maybe I've got 4 inches of snow sitting on that sidewalk.
Yes.
That it becomes a challenge. And I'm really surprised that somebody hasn't come to us and already say, hey, that's not, a sidewalk's not ADA compliant.
I am surprised the neighbor has not came in and talked to you.
Oh, as soon as that thing started
Because he
getting
was
built,
very adamant about this whole project.
yeah, that's true, because as soon as that thing started going up, I can't believe somebody
That
didn't complain.
he came and talked to me a couple of times when I was out having dinner and talked to me about it. So he definitely was not happy, and I'm surprised he hasn't said more about this. Because this definitely is not in compliance, it's an eyesore, and it's dangerous.
Not in compliance with anything.
No.
That's,
And I think it's in good gracious that if Jason would take it out, he's being blessed with a big thing.
heck yeah.
And we've already ordered him to put a sidewalk in. So I think all we're doing is following up with whether he's cut the business or not. He's been personally ordered, he owns the property.
That was part of the conditions that he put
Yes,
that sidewalk in, and
And I think we need to make a motion to Don to follow up that he has not done what he was supposed to do.
When you make that motion, make it in a motion that if the city attorney okays the process, because he's gonna have to have a little dog in this fight too.
you wanna,
I have a couple of questions. You said that you several times you tried to make a deal or work out something and you got shut down. What does that mean?
Well, we tried to work out a 50-50 deal, and this goes all the way back to about July, first part of July. And I thought we were moving in the direction, and then in the conversation I had with the city attorney, he told me that I didn't have the right to go in and take that sidewalk out, that it's his sidewalk, and that the recommendation has to, or he has to give us permission to do that.
The attorney has to give you permission? Or
Yeah, that's
false
why I
evidence?
say do this under the recommendation that the attorney says this. Now, maybe because it's coming from the board that I can reapproach Les in a different manner, because what we were gonna try to do.
you're supposed to get permission from the attorney or Fawcett.
from Fawcett, because he's
But
got
you
to
didn't
put in as his sidewalk. But,
But you didn't have that, I'm sorry for the time, but
no,
you didn't have the permission from him before. Is that correct? You didn't have permission, or
That's right.
he didn't want to work it out with you, or is that what I'm saying?
for John, it came down to the amount of money that he was going to have to pay to get it taken care of.
Which included the taking it out, which in turn would make it more expensive.
It's a little bit more expensive. The
Yes.
taking out part isn't that much. Concrete's expensive.
Right.
But one thing that we didn't do or say is that anything you don't pay by December attaches to a lien to the property. Now, the reason why I say that is that Les has got to draw the contract out.
Mhm.
He's got to make it read what it is that's been suggested on the 50/50. The 50/50 program says that the only way you can participate in it is that you have to pay your half before the project gets done. And so we're going against that. But because I had some extra money to do that, that brought the conversation on to Les to figure out. So at one time we were looking at drawing a contract to kind of say this, and then Les kind of went backwards on it. And so then that started being a different approach on how to resolve the issue. So that's why I say, even though maybe Les has killed this project once before, please make your recommendation to that if it is okay by the city attorney. It may be, I may have a little bit bigger bite by saying, hey, I went back to the zoning board to ask what their suggestion, here's what they suggested.
Part of one of my questions is, if we've already stated that these things are required, what good would it do to come back to a legislative body to again say this stuff is required? Like, that's the only thing that I don't understand. Does that question make sense? It's like why does it matter if it comes back to us, and what can we say exactly other than what we've already said previously?
What he has done, he's put something in that is illegal. That's the part that I have a problem with. Go ahead.
The second part is illegal. The first part was put in according to our office. He was told to put the sidewalk in exactly like it was across the street. So they went over there and measured it, and they put it in just like that. So,
And that's not sitting on top of the ground?
what's
Is
that?
that the one that's sitting on top of the ground?
That's the first part that's up about 12 inches,
Mm.
which is higher than it should be.
Right.
But that's what he said, measured across the street. And I'm guessing that our office said they were okay with that, because at that time, 28 was gonna come in and redo the sidewalks, and they thought, well, maybe they'll just, they wouldn't have, but they thought maybe. Well, now then, the 28th project's not gonna go for another 2 years on that section.
Mhm.
And so if you're asking me to just sit back and wait for 2 more years and make sure hope that nothing happens, I guess I'll do that. You have a great question there, David. I honestly can't answer that.
Well, I think part of that, the way to answer that is, we made a condition for him to put the pizza king in there, and those conditions were not followed. Now we're following up, okay, you did follow the
Right.
conditions that we put for this, regardless of whether the pizza king's still there or not.
Right.
He didn't comply with that. Now we're gonna say, we would like for this to go further because he did not comply with our requirements to pass this.
And
variance.
that's the proper following. When someone doesn't follow a variance that we grant them, they have to come back again.
No, what are you saying, Dave?
Basically, I'm saying that
Amen.
if we've already put things in place that says, hey, you have to follow this in order to. Why do we need to again say, hey, you need to follow this in order to? Because it's your office responsibility to enforce this. So like for example, the city council or whoever puts in laws that the police department then enforces. The police department never again comes to the city council or whoever to say, hey, someone was speeding or they made this violation. What do you want me to do about it? Does that make sense?
Dave, it makes perfect sense. I know exactly what you're
I
saying.
get it.
Yeah, and you're right, in your analysis. It's our job to enforce the rules. You told them to put the sidewalk in. My whole challenge comes in this whole issue is because if the first part of that sidewalk wasn't, I guess you could say, accepted by the office, I would have a lot easier time going to Mr. John and saying, hey, we're gonna tear all that sidewalk out and we're gonna put it back in. And you've got till the end of the month or the end of the year to pay, I don't even know if it's 50-50 on the sidewalk, or we'll attach the lien to the property because that's what we have to do. In all reality, that's probably the option that we should be doing.
Can I ask another question?
You can.
What ordinances are in place that state how a sidewalk is supposed to be put in the first place?
Without going up and getting it, it describes the proper, thickness, the width of the sidewalk. I think it's like the sidewalk has to be at least 4 inches in thickness, and I think it has to be 6 foot wide, maybe. Go ahead.
Can I say something really quick on that? He didn't get a permit for the sidewalk. So if he had gotten a permit, he would have gotten the specifications for installation
Oh,
of the sidewalk.
Okay, so then here we have we made a variance. We granted a variance, provided that sidewalks were put in place. The sidewalk took a sec to be put in place. First of all, it's not in properly. So again, we're not an enforcement body. The sidewalk should have been put in place per existing ordinances, codes, whatever you want to call it. And because that isn't done, then
You didn't get a permit,
yeah, and the permit isn't there. Again, why would you come to us? And I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any way. I'm just, what's my job here? Why are you coming to us when all of these things are already in place and you just go to him and say, this is not followed, this isn't right, you didn't get a permit, you didn't put it in right, take it out and put it back in, or pay fines or whatever.
Dave, you're exactly, you're all right. I'm not gonna sit here and say, well, here's why I did it. I've got my reason why I came down here. But they're really not probably important at this time, but everything you say I think is proper. I think is right. You told us what to do. I think my biggest challenge that I have with it is that half of it got accepted and that half is the worst half of the sidewalk. And so it makes it a little bit harder for me to go back to a guy and tell him, hey, you got to tear the sidewalk out on something that has been accepted by the office to begin with, and it shouldn't have been.
Right.
So that's kind of why I came back down here, and basically what you're saying, and I totally agree with you, and that is, hey Don, buckle up, buddy, go do your job.
No,
That's
that's
the right thing to say. I think it's the right thing to say, and there are times for me, I need to hear those type of things from different organizations, different groups, because then it does redirect me. As one of my challenges I had when I worked for community corrections is the kind heart, the mercy that I always give out. I actually will acknowledge that, and so sometimes I just need to have somebody say just what you said, which is, why are you coming to us when we've already okayed it? Now it's up to you to make sure it gets done right. You're exactly right. So we'll march forward. I think that I'll change my course of direction on this.
Again, no, I do not mean any disrespect whatsoever. Just I have to so we as the board accept a certain amount of responsibility for the decisions that we make. And we've already made decisions. And if you know, if you want to come back again, and again, there's no, I'm not pointing fingers or anything. I just, this whole process following it through. So for someone to come back and say, again, question, why would we follow a different standard than what we already set?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
If I may, Kevin, just real quick, I don't want to jump in here, but the bottom line, it comes back down, if our city attorney is saying something that I would just remind the board, the city attorney works for Frankfurt and not the other way around.
Right,
So
absolutely.
if you make a decision, it is that attorney's job to either stand by it and make it work, or we'll take the lawsuit and we'll have to fight it there. But the city attorney should be working for and not just making the decision. I'm sorry, you guys make the decision.
And Dave, where I look at it is, you're exactly right in what you're saying, but now we've got a little bit of a different factor. He was put in correct, he's tried to work on it, but we have a city attorney that has said something else. So now Don has come back and explained part of his problem.
Mhm.
And it is up to us to make sure, why hasn't it been done? It was our order. And I think we have a right to question that or to reinforce it.
If it was to come up to us again, say that I don't know what the correct term would be, but the individual that came and requested the variance was to come to us again, I think that then that would be, again, our place to review it and be, make another decision regarding that. But as far as the Department of Building Services coming to us and say, how do we enforce that? We don't decide how to enforce anything.
That's right.
We just say, this is what you need to follow. And then he's already got his rules or whatever that he's supposed to follow anyways. And so
He's at a stoppage because the city attorney has said no.
he's not at a stoppage necessarily because it was just a process that, can you address that? Where you said no, where you stated no from the city attorney?
First of all, I think that one, I probably shouldn't have brought this subject up here because I think you're spot on, Dave. I think you're spot on with the process. The challenges that I had has been with the different, I guess you could say, proposals that I have discussed, not only with John, but with Les, who has said, wait a minute, I don't know if you can do it that way. I don't know if you can do it that way. I don't know if you can do it that way. I mean, a lot of it is, the use of 50-50. We discussed that and this is probably not the right position to use 50-50 money in because it's not our responsibility for what's going on. It's the responsibility of the guy who put it in to put it in properly.
Right.
We know that it's in wrong.
Right.
And it's the sidewalk it's in it's an illegal sidewalk. And so it just comes down to saying, here's what we got to do. Now the question is can we do that because the sidewalk's already put in? Can we go back and say, hey, we're taking this out, we're going to put it in right, and anything that doesn't get paid goes to the lien of the property. I think that's where we are with this.
Did you have anything else to say? Okay. I have another point. So with the fire systems and stuff that we install, there are certain things that say a building is grandfathered in or whatever by a previous AHJ, which is authority having jurisdiction, right? There's certain things in place where you can say, okay, this is grandfathered in, I'm not going to touch that. But also whenever any changes are made, the new AHJ has the opportunity to come in and say, okay, you've made this change, now you got to bring everything else up to code. So I understand that the part of the sidewalk was put in under previous people approving it, right? But he put in more sidewalk, right? He put in more sidewalk, and that doesn't mean anything. It's not. It's the same as the old sidewalk or the sidewalk that was partially approved by the other administration or whatever, and it's not
With no permit.
So
With no permit.
yeah, correct. With no permit again.
No permit, and it was never originally finished. I mean, it was finished incorrectly.
Sure. So at least okay. So not, we're walking in circles here. I think I've already made a point.
Yeah, I think you made a great point, and here's the greatest thing that's come out of this conversation, and these are kind of the reasons why I gotta have it. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, I'm a little slow thinking, but I think the process now is to come back and say, okay, we probably can live with the second half of that sidewalk that's all roughed and put in rough but it's in.
Mhm.
Maybe we just need to address the sidewalk that's illegal, that's up too high, and just take it out and make it form to what's rest there. So not replacing all of it, but just replacing the front section of it. And, but see, until I have these conversations and get everything rolling up here, that takes a while. I think that's probably the right direction. I'll go back and talk to
But
Leslie.
is the first part in legal width?
First part's legal width, it's just too tall.
Okay.
You can't, somebody who's handicapped can't use the sidewalk, they can't make that step up.
Hey, can you sign these for her?
Sure, yeah.
It also includes.
I apologize to the board keeping you here
No, that's
another 35 minutes.
That was
I'm just going.
I didn't have anything else to say about it.
We were gonna order Pizza King pizza, but that didn't go.
Yeah.
And you know what's really bad? It's all been recorded, that's what's.
Yeah. Well, no, Donna, I honestly appreciate you bringing it up, because it was interesting for me from this aspect to learn about this and to learn more about to think about what my responsibility is as the board,
Absolutely.
whatever, and what your responsibility as the enforcer of whatever I say.
You're right.
More or less, you know what I'm saying?
You know, I'm just telling you, you were spot on with the whole process. I can't argue with that at all. And your recommendation is truly proper.
Okay.
Do your job,
White pants on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I understand, okay, as somebody that works with the city from time to time,
No, thank you.
I don't like the government, coming to me all the time. It's inconvenient, they cost more money, all that sort of thing. But at
That's
the
what I
same
think.
time, we've already said X.
Are we adjourned?
You may actually point, I appreciate what you said there.
I need to sign this.
Yeah, it was a good point.
Yeah, there's also the one from last week that we didn't sign last week.
Are we adjourned?
We are adjourned, aren't we? Yeah.
Yes. Do we have some papers to sign or not?
Yes.
Forms for tonight and then.
I think there's one here still that there was not, I signed it, but it's not in there.
You should have 4 signatures, everyone should have 4.
Oh, really?
Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Richard.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
My
right.
wife's not gonna be super happy that I'm not home yet, but it'll be okay. It's not the first meeting I've been, late.